must have made an impact.
Yes. Michelangelo painted himself in the skin that a character, human skin that a character keeps in the Vatican fresco. So I felt the need to describe myself as I am in this world, which for us is the real one, but for me is actually one of the many possible worlds. So, so to describe myself while writing the book. So a sort of a self-referentiality of the book. And what you wrote, what you quoted was very adequate, but in the second volume I just describe myself staying in Schloss Solitude in Stuttgart, and in the third volume, in Stuttgart, and writing this very book, and I describe myself in my whole appearance, the clothes that I was dressed in and so on, everything true to life.
Yeah.
So it was a realistic image of mine. The book is full of this kind of gimmicks, of literary theory, things more or less kitsch, more or less beautiful, and so on. I played a lot while writing this book. This book seems sometimes, or might seem, too serious, too visionary, too poetic, but actually I had a lot of good time writing it. And it has comical pages, it has satirical pages, it has stories of all kinds, love stories, adventure stories, fantasy stories, and so on in it. So it's not only meditation, metaphysics, or theology, or things like that. They are immediately visible, but they are not everything. This is a book that in a way is like our brain, it's like our minds, full of reason, but also full of folly, in a way.
Have you always been interested in bringing that aspect into your books? I mean, so much of the lexicon is comes from biological sciences, and there are aspects of I think fractal theory involved. There's a lot of cosmology involved, and that's built into the lexicon, but it's also essential to what the book is. Is that something you've always been interested in? It reads as though written by someone who had actually done an internship at Sinai Medical.
The thing that I always reproached to my colleagues, the writers, is that they only read literature. They don't know what they lose, not reading the real, in a way, literature, which is scientific one, which is psychological one, which is philosophical one, which is all kinds of literature. All the walls of the bookshops are full of them. I do not rely in my image about the world and in my image about myself on only on literature. I rely on everything that exists. I'm a poet, and I have always been a poet, and I could tell you that being a writer it's only an accident in my life. Actually, I'm one of the persons that are looking for the truth, in a way, looking for the truth of this world. Why was I born? Why I can see the world? Why I can feel anything? So these are perennial and absolute questions that everyone asks himself or herself from time to time, but for me they are crucial. I really exist for them, and one of my answers is that the world is poetic. Actually, the world is a huge poem, and I have always looked for little drops of poetry everywhere, and I think the sciences are poetry. If you look at them in a special way, in a particular way. Philosophy is poetry, in my opinion. The best philosophy of the world is poetry. Think of Plato's visions of an upper world, the world of the ideas, for example. This is poetry. I even, when I read novels, I'm not interested as much in characters and plots and subjects and so on, but I'm interested in the chemistry of the words, that if you squeeze them like you wipe the table with it with sponge, like a sponge. I forgot the name. Like a sponge, just is the poetry which drops. And I gave many times this example from biology. Biology is poetry. The insects are the most poetic creatures in the world. They are demons, they are angels, they are everything you want to be. I gave this example from biology. One of the most important laws of biology is that the ontogeny repeats the phylogeny in the development of the embryo. That is, each of us were once a fish, a lizard, a mammal, a monkey, an ape, and so on. So we just repeated all the steps of our species till we became human. Isn't this poetry? It's a huge it's huge poetry. So, in my opinion, God was a poet, and he wrote the most remarkable poem ever written. And I'm living in this poem, maybe like a coma or something. And I would be very happy to take a step back and to read it completely.
And there is a sense of this kind of species memory that pervades everything in the novel. You have this one great line about it's so fun. It's kind of funny, but it's actually profound. We ought to remember with our testicles in love with our brains.
Yeah.
It's something about our reversed symmetry of how.
Yes. I think it's only my idea. I never found it in some other places, that the body is not only vertically symmetric, but also horizontally. That our diaphragm actually is like a mirror, where the upper part of our body is reflected in the inferior part. So the hands have the correspondent the legs. The heart has maybe the bowel, or I don't know what the lungs have a demonic correspondent in the guts, and so on. So the testicles, or the what's the female equivalent, ovaries.
The ovaries.
Ovaries actually are the reflection in the mirror of the brain, of the two hemispheres of the brain. And I speculated, like a mystic, from this image, that we use our brain to orient ourselves in space, and we use our sexual organs to navigate in time, because we produce children, so we produce a future, and so on. So this is one of the kind of mystical speculation.
Yeah, this is along the same lines where you say that
Yes.
space is paradise and time is the inferno.
Yes, so I went very much deep inside this,
Yes,
this
definitely.
speculation.
Well, we're going to get far too deep into it probably if we continue in this vein, but I guess we should see if there's anyone that would like to have a question or a comment. And there's one thing I do want to know about before, and we'll just do that in a second, but